Welcome to week 4 of our study, Tending the Fire, as we go to a concept that Archbishop Rowan Williams talks about as being flee. And the idea is that we flee from anything that would give us an exalted opinion of ourselves, and that as a rule, the desert monastics were looking for any sign, any kind of hairline fracture of their personality that would show that they weren't regarding their neighbors as they ought, or that they were having too much self-regard, or that they were living with this manufactured or false persona. You know what it is, the idea that I am going to pretend to be the person that other people want me to be in order to be liked, in order to be accepted, in order to fit in, that I am going to be someone other than who I am, this false self. And what the Desert Fathers were looking for is that they would live a lives where their true self was open to the regard of God, so that they were open to transformation, to change. Now, this idea of having a false persona is particularly something that clergy are susceptible to, because people so listen to them so often. So often we get the idea as clergy that what we have to say is worth saying. More important even than our silence is all the words that we can use to fill up space, and that we can get an idea that because we can say something, and because people listen, that it's reflection on our worth somehow. So this is why the desert monastics often just fled from that call to become an ordained minister, because they were fearful that this is what would happen in their lives. And they thought it was particularly important for these people who held a position of authority to be very clear whenever they fell short, and open and honest, and let others see that they not only acknowledged that they had done something wrong, but that there were consequences for them, so that all people would feel free to present their true self in front of others. So they did realize, though, however, that sin was something important, and that's why it needed to be confessed, and that it shouldn't be judged in others, because unless we were living with a false persona, we had plenty to worry about in our own lives. Abba Moses was particularly insistent on this, and he had some wonderful sayings that said it. He said, if you have enough sin in your own life and in your own home, then you have no need to go searching for it elsewhere. That understanding we can't judge others, because we ourselves are sinners too. And he said it even more colorfully once. He said, if you have a corpse laid out in your own front room, you won't have the leisure to go to a neighbor's funeral, right? The awfulness of sin is out there for all to see, that we don't have to be talking badly about the sin that we see in others. Not only does our society encourage us to have this false persona, to not acknowledge our true self and our shortcomings, but we also find our identity through the choices that we make, whether it's the job that we choose to do, whether it's the school that we choose to go to, or the car that we choose to drive, or the clothes that we wear. We feel that our identity is somehow grounded in the choices that we make. And so often, those choices are to be like everybody else, right? To fit into the crowd, to choose the things that will make us look good to others. Again, feeding into that false self, that false sense of identity. And instead of thinking that all of our life flows from the choices that God makes, that we think our choices are primary, Jesus said, I have come so that you might have life. And we turn that around we have chosen you, Lord, so that we may have the life that we choose. We need to turn to Jesus, who gives us life, not so that we have a manufactured identity that looks good, but so that our heart beats in tune with the loving heart of God. Now, seeing that true self can be difficult. And we want to flee sometimes, but we do need to flee from that idea of an exalted self, of a self that's value is in what other people think of us or in the choices that we made. And the purpose for fleeing from those situations where our compulsive false nature is present is so that we can have the self-knowledge to stop running away.